Welcome to the Parliament of the World's Religions, held at the Forum in Barcelona, Spain. We join this session as it is just beginning.
I'm glad that everybody is enjoying their interactive session. I just want you to know that this is just a taste of what we're going to do in depth this afternoon in the AC Barcelona Sagrada Familia. We will have an afternoon at 3 o'clock, which will give you an opportunity to interact with many of our illustrious speakers and have more of a chance to share with them and with everyone your programs, your ideas for interfaith education, your curriculum, etc. It is now my pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have three, in my mind, amazing ladies before you, some of the finest interfaith educators that I know in the world. I'm going to begin with Dr. Heidi Hassel on my left. Dr. Hassel is the president of Hartford Seminary in Hartford, Connecticut, USA. She came to the seminary from the Ecumenical Institute of the World Council of Churches in Switzerland, where she served as the director. Dr. Hassel.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a joy to be here, and I look forward to the informal dialogue with all of you as the days progress. We've been asked to speak about interfaith education as a global imperative. How is the sound? Is it good? Okay. We've been asked to speak about the global imperative of interfaith education. Slower? Okay. And we all know why why interfaith education is a global imperative. We live in a global village. Economic globalization is proceeding at a fast and relentless pace, although the optimism of the economists of a decade ago about globalization has dimmed considerably in recent times. Economic globalization is provoking cultural change at an equally, can you hear me?
You want to try mine? Yeah.
Sorry. Economic globalization is provoking cultural change at an equally fast pace, which occasions in all of our religious communities disorientation, confusion, the breakdown of values and habits, ways of life, and the assumed truths of each of our communities, each in its own way. Economic globalization and the changes it produces is throwing us together in unprecedented ways and pulling us apart in unprecedented ways. So, as religious people, we are less sure of who we are ourselves and still ignorant about who the other is. Or, alternatively, in self-defense against change, we become more sure of who we are and the truth that we possess, and more sure that the other, whoever he or she is, has nothing to offer. So we find ourselves in a situation where, on the one hand, we have disorientation and confusion, on the other hand, rigidity and rejection of the other. Meanwhile, the global processes continue: the economic, the cultural, the technological, the information. And unless we, as religious people, take hold of the moment, or seize the time, as they say, the voices of our religious communities, the voices of our traditions, the knowledge of many centuries, indeed thousands of years that we carry, the truths that we profess, will be impotent to impact these global forces. These global forces that are so relentlessly shaping our lives. We will be impotent to impact them except negatively through the violence of the extreme elements found in many, if not most, of our religious traditions. As we know, economic rationality has no nation, no religion, no culture, unless it's the Coca-Cola culture, but it does have a logic and a value system. The logic and the values are ones that tend to level everything in their path. The common economic denominator is profit and loss, efficiency and inefficiency, free markets and consumption. These values may be fine for economists. I'm not here to debate that point today. My point is that whatever else they are, they're not the sum total of human values and human wisdom. We're not condemned to live in the iron cage that Max Weber described over 100 years ago. So as religious people, as carriers of other human sensibilities, sensibilities that give meaning and dignity and depth and order to human life, it's our common task, each in our appropriate ways, to not leave the public square empty of everything but the marketplace. A global reality has been given to us or forced upon us. It is up to us to decide what we do with it. It falls upon us as religious people to witness together to another vision, to alternative ways of being, to the potency and meaning of values that are too often marginalized. An important way forward is the way of interreligious education. Interreligious education is multifaceted, it is formal, it is informal, it is academic, it is experiential. It all depends upon who the learners and the educators are at the moment. Some tell stories, others engage in almost mathematical theological debate. Each approach in interreligious education is shaped by religious tradition, by culture, by the interests and the affinities of those involved, and also dependent on local contexts. Some will educate through sharing of different spiritualities. Others will do textual critique. Others will concentrate on doctrinal matters. And there will be those who learn through the everyday dialogue of life together. And most of us will learn something from all of these approaches. The best we can do as educators is to affirm each of these approaches. What we want to avoid is to spend our time fighting with each other about the right way to do interreligious education. The carefully planned program for the next 3 days of this symposium lifts up and provides space for each of these approaches. My approach, for example, because I'm a Christian from a liberal branch of one of the churches of the Reformed tradition, and I'm also an ethicist, is an approach that privileges religious education that sheds light on themes that the global realities have put on our common agenda. Themes that I think religious people need to think about together. Science, genetic engineering, cell research, euthanasia, the environmental questions, our air, our water, our earth, and the common stewardship of our creation, human exploitation, child prostitution, forced labor, the roles of women in our societies. And my list could continue. The point is that this is my list, not yours. There is room and plenty of need for our multiplicity of concerns and involvements. It is critical, however, that whatever we concentrate on, we take seriously the global context in which we think and act. This context and our awareness of it should give us new eyes through which to read our texts, interpret our traditions, learn from other traditions, and new eyes as we carry out the self-critique that any genuine education requires. In teaching social ethics on the kinds of themes I just mentioned, I have discovered that I can't do my job as a Christian social ethicist without drawing upon and learning from experiences of communities and religious groups around the world of our many faith traditions. Muslim students in my classes in ethics greatly enrich the dialogue and the awareness and the debate that we have among us. And of course, more often than not, it is through education and dialogue and through the people and ideas of other faiths that we can best express the value commitments motivated by our own faith. An obvious example, my tradition teaches love of neighbor, as do all of our traditions in one way or another. I have to figure out, therefore, and help my students figure out what that means in a global context. Clearly, in a global world, my neighbor is not just my neighbor across the street, but my neighbor is across the globe. And my neighbor is a Hindu, a Jew, a Muslim, a Buddhist, an atheist. I have been involved in many ecumenical conversations between Christians for many years. Christian ecumenists often say that Christian unity is a question that involves the credibility of the Christian faith. Who can believe the Christian faith if Christians can't even talk to each other? In the global and plural context of the 21st century, one might say, and indeed one might insist, that the ability of religious communities to talk to each other and learn from each other is similarly a question of credibility. Not the credibility of the Christian faith this time, but rather the faith of each of us and each of our traditions, the credibility of religious faith itself. It is not enough that we come together and learn about each other. We need to help each other find our voices and our common voice as people of faith, so that we take not just other religions as learning partners, but also so that we can engage the wider world, which needs the best wisdom we have to offer. The conversation starts between people of faith, but it must move and extend beyond these boundaries. My time is running out. As an earnest Protestant, I have talked about our tasks and our duties and our obligations as people of faith as we learn together. I want to say that while daunting, these tasks, this process of interreligious learning, is also a source of real joy. I've been involved in Christian theological education all of my professional life. I'm now at an institution that does Christian theological education, but is also fully engaged in interreligious education, especially between Muslims and Christians. And I say with great joy, I can't remember a context I have shared in which the delight of discovery and the joy of learning together and being together is more palpable and more real. This joy that comes from interreligious education is a source of energy and also a gift that we together offer to the wider world. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Hadsell. That was wonderful. Our next speaker is Dame Dr. Professor Meher Master Moose from India. Dr. Master Moose is the founder and president of the only Zoroastrian college in the world in Mumbai, India. And she is the recipient of the Dag Hammarskjöld Award in 1968 and the Medal for Interfaith Peace by His Holiness the Pope John II in 1989. It's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Dr. Professor Meher Mastermoose.
Thank you. Beloved souls, enlightened educationists, and dear friends, at the outset, let me thank Alison Van Dyke and Lakshmi Shah and the Temple of Understanding and all you good folks here who have gathered together for organizing this wonderful educational seminar within the Barcelona Parliament. I would like to thank you for that, Alison, and Lakshmi ji for inviting me here to be with you, and all of you. And at the outset, let me say, I'm sure you have heard the name of Zarathustra. The Zoroastrian College, using the English form of the name, is endeavoring to bring about this kind of spiritual awareness and revival of the wisdom, the ancient cosmic wisdom that exists as the golden thread underlying all faiths of the world. Let me commence by blessings. The blessings of Pak Dada Aura Mazda, all the Amesha Spentas, the archangels, all the Yazaters, the angels, all the Mino Dai Ratu, all the good and holy souls who are the prophets of all the faiths, the soul of Ashospitama Zarathustra, the soul of every great founder of faith, the blessings of Shah Behram Vazavan Sahib, the Prince of Peace of the Aquarian Age, the blessings of all the good and holy Ashofarohas, the guardian angels. Every one of us has a guardian angel, and the high guardian angels. The blessings of the holy Abed Sahib Delan of Chichestwar and Demavanko. The blessings of the Prince of Peace of the Aquarian Age, Shah Behram Vazavan Sahib, who is with us here and now in this time period. The blessings of all the good persons living on planet Earth, not just those physically present at this Parliament in Barcelona, but many millions of others who are with us in spirit, if not in person. And the blessings of all the holy souls in heaven. And I'd especially like to remember at this point Juliet Hollister, who was one of the pioneers of the Temple of Understanding, thanks to whom I'm sure we have been greatly influenced. I don't propose to read a paper. I sent this in advance so that every person here in this room could have a copy. And if you don't already have one, then there are plenty available. Please do collect one at the end of the session from me. There's a pile of them in the bag over there. What I'd like to highlight from this paper, considering the time's limits, is what is it that has brought us together here? The cosmic law that exists from all eternity, the divine universal natural laws of the creator of the universe, Aura Mazda, the creator of light, energy, and matter. All souls are governed by these laws. Whether we are evolving as stars in the cosmos, as souls of constellations of stars, or coming closer to the solar system as planets within the solar system, governed by these two beings referred to in the ancient Avesta, the language in which our 9,500 years old Mazdyasni Zarathustrian Dhyana texts are written, is known as Avesta. We have the knowledge here of the beings who preside over the forces of light and darkness, positivity and negativity, the electromagnetic field of the solar system, which governs all the souls that exist within this solar system. The planets with their beautiful rainbow colors of light, governing the light of the evolving souls, And as we come to planet Earth and evolve from the level of the mineral kingdom to the plants with their beautiful myriads of colors, the flowers and the fruits, and we evolve slowly onwards through the connections with the planets and their lights to this level of the animal kingdom, the fish and the birds and the reptiles and the insects, and the four-legged animals and the two-legged animals, and evolve onwards to the level of being half angels and reach the angelic beings. In this entire process of evolution, souls are endeavoring to progress spiritually. This is the purpose of our life on planet Earth for all of us. And whether we are able to move forward on this goal which every soul has of obtaining at-one-ment with the Creator of the universe, by filling our souls with cosmic light of all the colors of the rainbow, gaining that high spiritual level of white light of perfection, which enables us to become immortal, merge with the white light of the Creator. This goal is within the consciousness of every creature that lives. And what is it that we, as human beings on planet Earth, have given to us as our duty and our obligation under the moral laws that govern the whole universe, is this sensibility that it's our responsibility to enable all other souls to evolve. I'm not speaking merely of pollution of the earth and the air and the waters. Terrible things are happening. I have brought CDs full of what's going on with vibrationary warfare that is perverting the minds, not just of human beings, but destroying life. Crises of souls that cannot progress because their entire species in the form of plants and animals and fish and birds are going and gone, not just dead as the dodo, but really extinct. It's our responsibility as human beings that in the course of education, we impart not just technical education to our students, but this consciousness and awareness of spirituality, this underlying golden thread, which is coming from ancient times through the high souls that have taken birth on planet Earth, whether they lived in the Peshtadian dynasty period of over 12,000 years ago, Jamshed Padsha and Faridun Padsha and Afshunisha and the Kianian dynasty about 9,500 to 12,000 years ago, Kaikhashru Padsha and Shah Vistaspa and our Paigambar Sahib, Ashos Pitama Zarathustra, whose name means, it's a title, the highest level of ancient spiritual golden white light of the halo, whose purpose was to influence all souls, to evolve through practices that everyone can practice. Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Thoughts, words, and deeds in obedience of the cosmic laws. Everyone can do that according to each one's own, his or her own level of understanding and ability. Englishmen who followed the Greeks, and the Greek historians changed the name of Zarathustra to Zoroaster in Greek, and that's the name by which our ancient Mazdiyasi Zarathustrian Dina is known today, Zoroastrian religion in English, have recorded that Zarathustra lived over 6,000 years before the Trojan War. And our own historians have ascertained, as well as there is scientific corroboration through astronomy, that the actual date is about 9,500 years ago from the present time period. But that is not the issue. The issue is, what does this ancient wisdom have to offer for us now, here and now, today, in the modern present times? Almighty Creator of the universe has sent great souls from time to time in different places to remind humanity of His wonderful universal laws. Whether it was Sri Krishna who came to enlighten the people in the Vedic period, or when times changed and the Vedic methods and systems fell into wrongful practices, Lord Buddha, who came to revive the ancient faith, Lord Mahavir, who brought the revival through the Jain faith, even Guru Gobind Singh in a much more recent time period, Lord Jesus Christ, who came to clean out what was going wrong within the previous period faith, the Jewish faith, Moses, Lord Moses, who tried to make the people of that time period understand and be aware of the truths of God Almighty. And great souls who have taken birth in China and in North America and South America and in Australia in ancient time periods, from the Lemurian civilization period to the Atlantis civilization to the present times. All great souls have been sent with one purpose only, and that is to spread the awareness of this golden thread, the golden thread of knowledge of the divine laws, the ability to make people understand how to progress, how to be obedient through practices which are suitable for the souls taking birth at that time period, having their links with the planets and the stars, with all the different colors of the rainbow. The whole rainbow colors of light lead to one color, white light. And that's what every soul is aiming at. And this perennial philosophy, the golden thread of ancient cosmic wisdom, has been kept alive in the last 200 years, here also in North America and in Europe. So from the time of Sir Francis Bacon and Mozart, the composer who spoke of Zarathustra in his wonderful opera, from the time of Benjamin Franklin and late Dr. Otto Zardusht Hanish, Dr. John Howard Zitko. In India, through the Theosophical Society founder, Madame Blavatsky, and Ustad Sahib Behram Shah Nauroji Shroff, who brought the light of illumination of Ilm-e-Khnum to the Zoroastrians in India, which we are now trying to spread in English language for the benefit of humanity worldwide. Great souls have come, and great souls, enlightened souls, are trying to follow and preserve the golden thread. And I think this is what we as educationists should focus on. In this parliament in Barcelona, there have already been so many conferences, parliaments before this, but something positive should come out of this parliament. What I have suggested in this paper is that we form a working committee, and through the working committee invite people of all different religions who are scholars and practitioners of their own faiths to identify in different countries educationists who have the capacity to write a series of graded textbooks for children from kindergarten up to the university level. And through this method, we're very rapidly, within 12 years, to bring about a spiritual renaissance for the present 21st century, so that Shah Behram Vazavan Sahib, the Prince of Peace of the Aquarian Age, can be helped in his work to promote peace and understanding, goodwill, cooperation, harmony amongst the people of planet Earth, instead of what we are witnessing today, senseless wars and destruction. This committee can then recommend, and with the cooperation of such organizations as UNESCO and UNICEF and NGOs like the Temple of Understanding, like our Zoroastrian College, and the World Fellowship of Interreligious Councils, the United Religions Initiative, and many other NGOs, we should identify those NGOs and those universities and colleges which are willing to promote this kind of spiritual education. At the Zoroastrian College, we have given the facility through the Interfaith Peace Department to do research. Any person, anywhere, in any country of the world, who is interested to write a research thesis for a degree of MPhil or PhD can do so. You don't have to come to Sanjan, this building which is located in a beautiful countryside in India. It has got one of the best libraries of ancient cosmic wisdom books. You can sit at home and do your own research, but submit it through the college for gaining that, for promoting that awareness, which will benefit you in the form of a degree, but it will benefit the whole world in the sense that you will be able to reach out to give your ideas and your contribution towards world peace. Another project is for children. What I have recommended is a calendar be produced every year through the schools of different countries in different languages, giving the major holidays and festivals of the different religions, so that children learn to participate actively in the festivals of their friends, and not just simply celebrate Christmas or Eid or Diwali, but celebrate all the festivals. The Zoroastrians celebrate every festival. We are perpetually enjoying ourselves celebrating with all our friends.
Thank you so much.
And I think at this point I must conclude, and I will do so by reciting the Yenge Hatam. Yenge Hatam at yasna paiti vangaho mazdaura vetha shatacha yangam cha tascha tauscha yasmaide. We praise those men and women from amongst the living whose actions are good and whose goodness is adjudged by righteous Aura Mazda. We are not the judges. The judge is above. Thank you.
Thank you, Master Moose. Our next speaker is going to want me to explain to you that she is a peace educator. However, we have noticed that she is sneaking a lot of interfaith ideas into her peace education. So we persuaded her to speak with us today. I now would wish to introduce Dr. Betty Reardon. Dr. Reardon is the founding director of the Peace Education Center at Teachers College, Columbia University in New York City, USA, and founder and general coordinator of the International Institutes on Peace Education.
Thank you very much, Allison. Thank you, all of those who have come to lend your energies to this effort, and my special thanks also to the Temple of Understanding for this invitation to join in those to join my efforts to these efforts. As Allison indicated, I speak to you not as an interfaith educator, but as a peace educator. I cannot say, as often people say, I am a person of faith. I think I am a person striving to be faithful to a faith, and I do strive also to enact another faith that I think joins us, and that is the faith in the human capacity to overcome the problems that we have been reminded we as persons of faith are called to confront. As a peace educator, I believe we have to do not just interfaith or interreligious education. We have to do what I would call multi-faith education. That is, that we all need to understand what our sisters and brothers believe. We need to understand that so that we can relate positively and fully to them, and so that we can engage in controversy with them when necessary around some of the civic issues in a fully respectful way. And that, in a sense, is what peace education is about. trying to create those capacities. I also think that we have another major task that faces all of us that lies in the secular world. I think that the problems we face require us to strive very hard to humanize the secularized world, to humanize those decision makers who rationally put themselves apart from some of the standards that we have embraced and internalized, some of us because of faith, some of us because of a deep reflection on what it means to be human. What it means to be human, those of us who practice peace education believe, is to realize human dignity and to take on human responsibility. I believe that if we were able to fully enact these two elements of peace education, we would be able to derive what UNESCO has called a culture of peace, something that I like to refer to as cultures of peace. Many cultures of the world, not necessarily integrated into one, but living, as the word was said yesterday, convivially together, a convivencia of cultures. Now, what as an educator do we, as peace educators, do we believe such a culture requires? Primarily, foundation is a commitment to human fulfillment of the whole person, including spirituality as an aspect of human dignity, the realization of the spiritual dimension of the human person, no matter what form it takes, is the major manifestation and the fruit of human dignity. As I have suggested, such a culture would also value religious diversity and freedom, the full freedom of diverse religions and cultures to practice their belief and to be fully respectful of each other's traditions, and to work with each other when necessary to evolve what some UN language refers to as harmful practices in cultures. I like to think that the most harmful practice that takes place in religion, which has been referred to several times this morning, is the perversion of religion to political purposes, to enlist people in striving and sacrificing for the goals and objectives of political leaders in the name of defending their faiths. We need, I think, to ground what we do in the present form of peace education, whether it is done in the interfaith arena or not, in the ethics of human rights, in the specific articulation of those rights, in the international standards, and I would also say the specific treaties I'm adding to the list of civic education, and not only the treaties that refer to human rights, but the international treaties that are coming close to a recognition of the fundamental sanctity of the earth itself. We need, I think, in order to do that, not only to work toward an education which commits us to strive for the preservation, for religious freedom, the preservation of culture and the renewal of the earth, but we have to educate very specifically about overcoming of all forms of violence, whether it is the minor, I retract that adjective, whether it is on the most intimate level, a subtle psychological abuse of a child, which we see every day around us, through genocide, warfare and genocide. All those forms of violence are embedded in behaviors and institutions that we can educate to overcome if we have the intention to do so. What is the problematic that we face, the specific problematics that we face as interfaith or multi-faith educators? Peace education always looks to the goal of the realization of human dignity and human responsibility, and to the transformation of violence into positive energies, into the nonviolence that would characterize a culture of peace. And it looks to the problematic and tries to find ways to frame the problematic. We've heard mention of the violence of the world in forms of war and religious conflict. In terms of peace education, there are two frameworks that we can bring to educate, to overcome, to understand and overcome the problematic. And one is the general area of intolerance, and we can specify religious intolerance. But as some of you know, tolerance as a goal has been embraced fully into the program of UNESCO, and they have developed many, many materials around this. I myself did one series for them, and as part of that, we put forward a framework of how one diagnoses intolerance and a kind of scale of how it escalates and where society should begin to take care that we may, with this one small incident, we may be opening the road up through the possibility of genocide. We find that intolerance follows a kind of pattern from discrimination right up through destruction. And it offers a way in which, the pattern offers a way in which we can educate for understanding not only the attitudes, but the process and where one intervenes in the process. I'm not very long away in my process, but let's put on. We'll speed up. Okay, you know that I've already indicated that another framework would be the political problematic of the structures and institutions which pervert religion to their own attention. Okay, so now what is the challenge for peace education? The challenge of peace education is to bring this specifically and programmatically into all forms of education, formal and non-formal, by sitting down and planning it and trying out and doing it. Most particularly, the area of human rights is significant, and for us, part of the most significant substance, of course, would be Article 18 of the Universal Declaration and the Declaration on the Elimination of All Forms of Intolerance based on religion and belief. Now, I advocate looking at these declarations because they provide the cognitive terrain. One says to the learners, what is the meaning of this text? What are the conditions which gave rise to the text? What are the ways in which we can fulfill that meaning? I wanted to speak in somewhat more specific terms about two projects that I am involved in, one called the Ethical and Spiritual Foundations of Peace Education. Allison mentioned that I'm infusing interreligious education into peace education, but I feel that what we need to do always is to not doing what the others are doing in the field. And I found a great lack of looking into elements of religion that we need to understand for the reasons that I spoke of when I started to speak. We have 3 peace education centers, one in the Philippines, one in New York, one in Japan. We're developing one in India, which are working together on a general curriculum, adding faith by faith, also focusing on the ethical standards and the environmental aspects. That is, we are not trying to teach necessarily a course in comparative religion. We are trying to teach something about what religions teach in regard to peace and justice issues, so that we all know that about each other. That is what I think is the positive, futuristic form of education. I'm also working with the International Association of Religious Freedom and the People's Decade for Human Rights Learning to devise a series of videos based on the violation of Article 18, the right to freedom of religion and belief, for use in communities and schools based on actual stories of the violations of this right as a diagnostic tool toward community action. We are looking for those actual stories, and I have brought an appeal to contribute to the stories, which will form the basis of the scenarios for the videos. And I hope that any of you who know of a story that you would like to have considered, I hope you will take one of these flyers and get to us. Finally, I want to say that what has been said prior to my Rush presentation actually articulates so much of what I think peace education should be about. I wish that we had the kind of education in school that Dr. Master Moose has spoken of throughout the world. And I wish that we had the kind of intellectual challenging that Dr. had spoken of in all of our universities. And I hope that through our time together that we will find ways to make some of those more possible, including this committee. And please let us also remember our obligations to interact with the secular community and to bring about the humanization of the full society, because I think as we struggle for our own humanization by understanding and reaching out to others who have all kinds of beliefs, we humanize ourselves and realize our own human dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reardon. It's quite a challenge to have these 3 amazing teachers put their presentation into 15 minutes. So I want to thank them very much for the struggle to do that. I also just want to clarify something that's very important to us, the Consultation for Interfaith Education. We are not one organization, but we are an amazing group of 8 organizations who've come together to promote the interfaith educational field as we see it, a new field in education. So I thank you for your kind words about my organization, but I just want you to know that I'm so honored to participate in this process with my other sister and brother organizations, because we've worked together for 3 years now. We've never had an argument, a few disagreements, and we're all together, and it's just a wonderful experience. We now have 5 minutes for you to question. Send some questions up here to the panelists. Please state your name and the organization or group that you belong to and who you would like to address your question to. And I'm afraid we don't have any mics, so you'll have to, oh, we do, okay. We've got a mic right here, so raise your hand, please, and the first person will get the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bill Warner Prouty, and I'm a part of the traveling seminar.
A little louder, please.
My name is Bill Warner Prouty, and I'm from Connecticut, and I'm part of Dr. Hadzel's traveling seminar. My question, however, is not for her, but for Dr. Moose. And my question relates, and this is from the standpoint of somebody who's grown up in the West and intrigued by Zoroaster and Zarathustra, coming to an awareness of that figure through the writings and the thinking of Nietzsche. And my curiosity, you did not mention Nietzsche in the series of persons that you talked about, and I'd be curious as to what your thoughts are about Nietzsche as somebody who can open up the wisdom of Zoroaster in the West.
Well, thank you for asking that question. It's a tragedy, and at the same time, maybe that's the way God willed it. Nietzsche was a German philosopher who lived at the time of the 19th century when the Kaiser of Germany was having an educational revival and trying to bring about an understanding of the ancient cosmic wisdom, and he promoted studies in Vedas and Sanskrit as well as in Avesta and anything that dealt with the Aryan wisdom. Now, Nietzsche was a professor who was very shrewd. He wanted to catch the ear of the Kaiser. So what's better way than to propound his own ideas and give the title of his book as Thus Spake Zarathustra, because that was a surefire way of getting the attention of the Kaiser. I'm awfully sorry to say that although some of the texts and some of the views that Nietzsche has expressed may reflect something which he may have derived from the teachings of Zarathustra, in fact, a lot of the stuff in his book is just purely his own ideas on the reform of the educational system that should have taken place in the German universities at that time period in the 19th century. And he did succeed in getting away with his ideas being presented and catching the eye of the Kaiser by doing this, by getting a catchy title to his book. Anyway, one of the ripple effects of that has been that people who've at least read his book have come to an awareness that in ancient time periods of the Aryan Avijja, a great prophet as Zarathustra did exist. And, well, I suppose there's always a beginning for every person, so this might as well be a starting point for anybody to at least get the introduction to the name of Zarathustra, and from that point onwards, try to seek further into the actual texts, which are available now in English language, written out in Roman script with English language translations. In our Zoroastrian College, we brought out the whole series of books on that. We have them in German, we have them also in Russian, in Tajik, in French. So there's no lack of availability of books, but of course I do say that the books that we have brought out in English are the best because we have tried to put it in 20th century modern language, simple and easy for everybody to understand, because today is the Aquarian age and we are living in the age of vibrations. Everyone is aware of things like the halo and the aura and vibrationary frequencies, and nobody thinks today that it's unusual for people to travel and visit the moon or Mars. And 200 years ago, in the time of Nietzsche, if anybody had taken a bet that, man can go on the moon, they'd have said, you're a nut. How can man go on the moon? But today, everyone takes it for granted. You see, so we live in a different age. We live in the age of vibrations, and so we understand the teachings of Zarathustra in the context of the Aquarian age.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid that we're out of time. I encourage you to please attend the 3 o'clock session when you will have a chance to talk in more depth with our 3 panelists. Thank you very much.
This is the end of Part 1. Please go to Part 2 to continue the program.